we still being quiet?
We're still being quiet. Let's go live.
Okay, we should do
I
it.
think it's time. I think they can hear us. Welcome in to another edition of Inside Carolina Day After Podcast. Sun came up. We are all smiles, for now at least. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt being the title sponsor of this podcast. Buck, I got no opening thoughts, so I'm going to kick it to you and let you get the opening thought train rolling.
Well, I would say that if you were reading about this game or you didn't know anything about what happened and all you knew was the score, Clemson won 31-20, that would not come as a great shock to anybody. They were favored by nearly a touchdown, and playing in Death Valley, they win 31-20. The entire college football nation is going to yawn at that outcome. But if you go, once you get into the game itself, it's a completely different story. This was a game, honestly, North Carolina should have won. They had the opportunity to go up 21-0. That would have completely changed the timeline in the metaverse for the rest of the game. And so, why they didn't win, who knows? We could blame several different aspects of it. I think a lot of people are going to have questions about did North Carolina's defense play well enough to win this game? Last week on the game plan, Jason said 34 points wins this game, and he'd been right. So I think if things had gone according to Hoyle, North Carolina wins this game. The wild card in all of that is that Clemson's defense neutralized North Carolina's greatest weapon, which is Drake Maye. And for most of the game, they had him under wraps. Under 50% completions, that's a big deal. And North Carolina is going to need Drake Maye, for what time we have left with him, to do Drake Maye things. And in this game, he wasn't able to. The offensive line was an issue on pass protection. They sacked him 4 times. They were credited with 6 quarterback hurries. Probably PFF is going to rank the pressures on Drake way up there. It was the offensive line. If I had to single out one culprit in all of this, I'd have to go with the offensive line and the pressure that the Clemson defense was able to put on Drake Maye. That's where I would come out.
Jason, I'm gonna get you in here on that, but just your opening thoughts here. Certainly a game that changed on a dime. That's why it's called a gut punch, because of a Nate Wiggins gut punch. But your overall take?
Yeah, I thought the offensive line played well enough for Carolina to win. I see 5 tackles for loss on the afternoon for Clemson. And yeah, Drake Maye was under some pressure, but like you said, Carolina was in position to go up 21. This game was decided by 2 fumbles. And, from a guy who hasn't fumbled in his entire college career until those 2 plays. And, one of them going into the end zone on a crazy effort play by, a guy who flashed some, Wiggins made himself some money on that play just for showing the game speed, because Omarion Hampton, as you could see from the fact that the other defensive backs weren't making any ground up on him, that's a fast dude at running back. I mean, he ran 10.7 in the 100 meters in high school, 10.78 or whatever it was. That's fast, and I don't know that he's ever been caught from behind like that in his life. And then Wiggins came in and knocked the ball out, and honestly, I think that play decided the game. And, you combine that with the other one, I'm not sure he ever fully had it well tucked going into the line of scrimmage off the handoff. But, you take those 2 fumbles away in this game. Carolina's up 21-0. This game, like you said, the whole timeline's different, Buck. And we're talking about a different game. But I mean, the defense gave up 5.2 yards per play. That's good enough to win a football game against a good team. And the offense went for over 6 yards a play. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. 6.6 yards per play from the Carolina offense against that defense. And we said going in, that Clemson defense is going to get its wins. You're going to have trouble throwing on the back 7 at different points. It's going to be tough sledding there, but you might get a win or 2 here and there. And Tez Walker did, J.J. Jones did, Drake Maye got a few wins there, but you're not going to be real consistent throwing against that bunch. And it's going to be uphill a little bit, being consistent running, and all of a sudden, you get the big plays that you were hoping for in the running game. You were able to run the football the way that you wanted with some chunk plays. And, I mean, looking at it now, the sack-adjusted rushing yardage is 9.6 yards per carry from Carolina. Look,
Same.
The offensive line played well enough for Carolina to have 9.6 yards per carry in sack-adjusted rushing yardage. That, to me, it really and I don't want to sound like I'm saying Omarion Hampton lost this game, because look, the guy was absolutely dynamite in this game. Right? This is not a player that lost this game. He went 19 carries for 178 yards on this game. Right? It's 9.4 yards per carry from Omarion Hampton in this game. North Carolina was in position to win this game because Omarion Hampton and the offensive line took care of business. You change the 2 fumbles, you get a better bounce on the one, and Hampton recovers it. That's luck, and you're fine. If Hampton manages to get 1 yard further before he gets stripped, this game's completely different. I think that's the game, and I don't really see a whole lot else there. I mean, we said, what did we say, Tommy, in the game plan podcast? Carolina had to have a neutral or positive turnover differential in this game to be able to win it. And if they were negative turnover differential, they're probably not winning this football game. And that's it. We could wrap it there.
Yeah. It was -1 on the turnover differential, that one being that big play. The thing about it is, and we talk about game of inches and all that, Buck, on the fumble, if that ball just goes out of bounds at the 1 yard line,
just
Carolina's
some terrible
ball.
breaks.
I mean,
goodness.
That oblong ball bounces in weird ways. I know a lot of people want to talk about Wiggins being out of bounds or whatever. That doesn't really apply there. Plus,
yeah, it's a legal play for him to come in bounds and make the strip. It has no bearing on it.
Yeah, and even if you wanted to argue that he didn't go out voluntarily either, he had to
irrelevant.
Get around the thing. But yeah, so folks need to get off of that aspect of it.
I need to address that, because by rule, so the reestablishing yourself in bounds is only applies if you're the first player to touch the football when it's unpossessed by another player.
Yep.
So if the ball had been laying on the ground and Nate Wiggins ran out of bounds and then came in and recovered it, different story. Now, if he came in and recovered it in the end zone, it's still a touchback. But if he went out of bounds and then came in bounds to catch a football, different story. Now that's illegal touching. It's just going to be the offense's ball. It's a whole different thing. If you go out of bounds and you come back in bounds to make a tackle, and you happen to strip the ball comes loose as a result, you strip a guy coming from out of bounds, none of that matters. Nobody watching that game, nobody listening to me here has ever seen, let's say you've got a sweep and you got a cornerback. You never see a corner like trying to tiptoe down the sideline so that he can legally make a tackle. It's just not how it works. And only thing you can't do other than that is on special teams. Your gunners or whoever are not allowed to run out of bounds intentionally and then come back in and make the tackle. And that's a special team specific rule. So I had so many people tweet at me, message me or whatever about, like, that's an illegal play. No, it's not. It was a legal play. It was just a really, really unfortunate and frustrating play. for Carolina, and a great hustle play by a Clemson player. But it was legal. It was not a bad call. Nothing was missed there. It just is what it was.
Yeah, and Jordan in the chat says wide receiver can't go out and come back and catch the ball. The ball's not possessed if it's in the air, and you can't be the first person to touch it. Buck, I said it jokingly before we got started, and I want to ask you this. We've been doing Carolina football stuff forever. I don't know if I've ever seen a team that can't get out of its own way more so than Carolina. Now, I watched a lot of football last night, and I was talking to my better half, and I said everything that we fuss about that North Carolina does and that happens in North Carolina games, it happens in other games. I mean, it's just we don't follow it as much. But Carolina has the unique ability to not get out of its own way to keep it clean on Sunday morning. And there is a common denominator here in these last 3 to 5 years, and it's the coaching staff continues to make mind-blowing game management, time management issues. Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's been a hot topic on the message boards. Where do you sit on this? Is it overblown? Is it a serious problem, which I think it is? Where does Buck Standers stand there?
Yeah, I'd say it's a problem. It's a problem. As far as it being the right call to go for the 2-point conversion, I think that's debatable. I mean, I've seen the stats and the advanced metrics on it, and they say 2-point conversion is what you do in that situation. But that's what the advanced metrics say. I've seen the chart, but it cost them a timeout. They didn't need to burn. That timeout was more valuable probably than the one extra point they would have gotten. So that's the real problem there. What are you laughing at, Tommy?
Jason is worked up.
That timeout that was the thing. The timeout, like, I didn't agree with going for 2, but like you said, it's debatable. That's a marginal thing, and I understand kind of why you do it. That's fine. But the timeout, I'm sorry, that you lost me there. You're going to need that timeout. You lost me.
That timeout, you get 3 timeouts and a half. That timeout is worth a gold bar versus those 2 points, potential 2 points. And I still don't understand why in the hell you would go for 2. I don't care if the analytics and the metrics say that. That's why that Rolodex and all these reliance on these numbers need to be thrown in the trash can. You cut that game to 10, you have an opportunity to get the ball back, you cut it to 3, you kick a field goal to tie, or you kick a field goal and you go for 2 then. I've always hated chasing points until you absolutely have to. And then, Buck, they doubled down by calling a timeout. Anyway, we interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, I'm fairly confident that the advanced metrics say that that's what you do in that situation. I've seen the chart. It was somebody posted it on Twitter this morning, I guess. At some point I saw it, and it just breaks down every down and distance scenario and all of that. And it says go for the 2-point conversion, which I don't dispute. But you're muted, Jason.
Yeah, I've been muting you, Jason, because you got some heavy background.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it's close to 50-50, but yeah, it's like 51 or 52% go for it. So I mean, it's a defensible position. I have no problem.
Yeah, right.
But burning a timeout, man,
Yeah. And by calling the timeout, that gave Sparky extra, minutes to make sure it was the right call. I mean,
my thing is if you know, you got to know you're going for something before you get there, right? It's kind of like a baseball player. If they hit it to me, this is where I'm going with it. And you're in that situation where if you're going to go for 2, you should know that before you get there, so you don't have to waste time and waste a timeout. It's just, and this is not a one-time thing. This is
Right.
not
We're not talking about it as if it made a difference in this game.
right.
I mean,
It did not make a difference in this
did
game.
not make a difference in this game, but it's an ongoing thing
It is the
that
common
happens.
denominator.
There's and it happens at the end of the first half, at the end of the second half, all over the place. That they don't seem to be able to get clock management down as a function of football. And if you're ever going to win big games, you're probably going to have to make some good clock management decisions. And so that's where I come out.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand how it's been an issue for as long. I mean, it started with kneeling on fourth down at the South Carolina game in 2019. I mean, that's where we are. I mean, the tape don't lie. Eye in the sky don't lie. Jason, we've talked about the running game. We've talked about North Carolina did enough, had enough success there. I can't believe the sack-adjusted yardage is 9.6 yards a carry against that Clemson defense is just unbelievable. And Omarion Hampton, the fact that he's the guy that fumbled, and you knew it was coming. As much as we talked about he hadn't fumbled all year, I was fully expecting Noah Burnett to have an opportunity and then maybe miss a field goal because we hyped him up so much, and not just us across the way. But Omarion Hampton has 225 yard carries this year for 1,414 yards and 2 fumbles. And they could not have come at a worse time. That's why football is just sports, man. That's total of sports. But I want you to talk more about his running, Jason, because I think we need to give him props despite the fumbles. This guy you cannot tackle him head up one-on-one. He is a guaranteed 3 to 5 yards no matter what. Just what have you seen from Hampton as far as progressing this season?
Well, the biggest thing is last year there were times where, as I said in my scouting report in the summer, you could see the talent in terms of the physical stuff, but there were times where it looked like he was running with his eyes closed at times. He'd run right into the backs of his offensive linemen. He would miss a seam. He'd get 3 yards upfield, and he'd have so much lean, trying to run behind his pads that he'd not be in position to really make a guy miss at that level. He's trying to run over everybody, and there were things that, for a high school player like his size and speed, you just kind of run into whatever location on the field you want, run over whoever's in your way, and run for a score. And in college, you have to learn how to read your blocks. You have to get your feet in sync with your eyes. You have to make sure that when you're coming into the line of scrimmage, you're accelerating at the right time into the right space, and then as you get to that next level, you can't just try to run over everybody, because their guys are going to be able to tackle you at this level. And what Hampton did is, over the course of the offseason and during spring, during camp, all this, and even I think he's grown as a runner during the season. I think he's a better runner right now than he was in the opener. He's gotten more and more feel for basically what they're asking him to do and how to set up his blocks and all that. What you're seeing is a guy who is, first of all, he's not sprinting into the line of scrimmage from the first step before he even gets the football. His sense of timing and his feet are synced with his eyes a lot better. And then the other thing is, when he is getting, so he's running through arm tackles, of course, at the line of scrimmage, but when he is getting to the second level, he's getting to the second level in balance and with the ability to make a cut. So he's still a one cut back, which is great. I love that kind of back. But he's getting to that second level in position to stick that foot in the ground and make a cut, rather than just trying to run through whatever's there. That combination is allowing him the acceleration, so he's sort of patiently sinking his feet with his eyes, and as soon as his eyes see something, that's where that acceleration, and he's got, I think, top end, talent in terms of the ability to accelerate for his size. It's the acceleration that then allows him to run through some initial tackles at the line, and then because he's seeing those seams better and he's in better balance, that's where you're getting the highlight yards. I mean, how many times yesterday there were 3 or 4 runs where Clemson had a guy kind of there coming in from that second level who could have made a play, and Hampton was just in he had a better angle to be able to take a 6-yard, 7-yard run and make it into a 60-yard run. And I mean, even the run where he fumbled, the long run there, you go back and you watch that run and the tackle that he breaks at the line of scrimmage or close to the line of scrimmage, which is not just due to size speed, that's due to how he understood the angle he needed to hit that at and hit it just right, and then stuck his foot in the ground and got the defensive player off balance and then ran through the arm tackle. All of that super impressive, and then he erased the angles and you could see the speed, the long speed. This is the kind of game. Omarion Hampton may have fumbled a couple times in this game, but he made himself money from the next level perspective because they know he's not a fumbler. There are guys who fumble because they're fumblers. These were fumbles that just, sometimes it happens. That's football. Sometimes a guy just gets the hand in the right place, or the helmet happens to go in the right place, and the ball's going to come out. He made himself a lot of money yesterday because that's a really good defense, and everybody who's going to scout that game that's going to be one of the first that they take off the shelf when he gets scouted next year. And the combination of physical stuff, like I said, was there last year. It's all the soft stuff. It's the vision, tying the vision to the feet, the patience, and understanding how to set up things to be able to hit big plays at the next level, at the second level, that really is where he's advanced. And he's one of the best running backs in the country. It should be in consideration for first team All-America at that position.
That'll be an interesting watch to see where he shakes out there. If he's not first team All-ACC, it's criminal, but but on the national level, it'll be interesting to see. But let's do the Drake Maye portion of the show. You talked about it earlier. Drake sort of limited by what Clemson was doing. 16 of 36. I wonder if he's gone 16 of 36 in his life. I tend to doubt it. All the way back to Pop Warner ball. 209. Completion percentage of 44. Nate Wiggins got him on an interception. You can see that one coming. I tweeted Nate Wiggins, Drake Maye's kryptonite. And on the fumble, let me refer back one more time to the fumble. Somebody just stand up and give Nate Wiggins some props. I've seen so many people talking about it wasn't legal. Omarion Hampton let up. The guy got around his legs a little bit at the end. Nate Wiggins made a hell of a football play. Somebody just stand up and say, as a Carolina guy, that dude just made a play, and it works, and it happens.
He made more than one in this game too. And You remember in the game plan podcast that Barrett, Carter, Trotter, and Wiggins were the 3 guys I singled out. And I said, look, Wiggins is the best corner Carolina will have faced or will face this year, because he dang well might be the best corner in the country. And
he was just
he didn't do anything in this game to convince me otherwise.
Yeah, and he was all over Tez. People said he held Tez. Sure he did. But, the bottom line is, at some point, it's not – it could be the officials if that's the way you want to take it. But it's not always the officials. It's not always coaching. It's not always Carolina players screwing up. Sometimes somebody else on another team makes a play. That's the one thing that I get tired of seeing the most, is just give somebody else props. Now, back to Drake Maye. Buck. He struggled at times. He made some good plays when he started running. What'd you think of his play, and how you think he's sort of progressed this season? Because you mentioned the offensive line. Those guys were all over Drake, especially up the middle on him. Your take there, Buck?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that when we were talking about the offensive line, I was speaking about pass protection, not run blocking. So that's part of it. But I think part of what we're missing here is going back to the alternative timeline theory of this game. Had North Carolina scored on that touchdown, the 2 touchdowns ahead of the fumble, that it would got to be 21-0, and then let's say Gio Biggers, his interception holds up, and Ced Gray's arm brushing the helmet of Cade Klubnik wasn't actually roughing the passer. Let's make that assumption, and North Carolina goes into the locker room at halftime 21-0. Drake Maye has a completely different game than the one he had. He's operating with a 21-0 lead. Clemson has got to do things differently. They've got to focus on different things. They can't sit back and just pin their ears back and try to go after Drake the whole second half. And the thing that Jason was talking about as far as yards per play of the offense, they average 6.62 yards per play. That's the highest number that Clemson has given up all year. They've not given up anything close to that all year. 5.8 something against Duke, I think, was the second highest. And North Carolina's yards per play given up was not that bad. It was under 6. It was like 5.43, I think. It wasn't bad. The defense, in terms of the number of yards they were giving up, was also not bad. But the problem was North Carolina ended up going into the locker room down 7 points. Clemson gets the ball coming out in the second half. Ultimately, they go on to win the time of possession in the fourth quarter, 11 minutes to 4. And North Carolina, even though they're averaging 6.62 yards per play, that doesn't matter if you're not getting very many plays in the game. I think North Carolina had 69 plays and Clemson ran 89, something like that. So we have to judge Drake's performance based on some of those factors. Had he gone into the locker room up 21-0, it would have been a completely different Drake Maye in the second half. He didn't, and he wasn't, and he ended up the way he was. But I'm not trying to make excuses for Drake. I didn't listen to his press conference, but I'm sure he placed all the blame on himself. Everybody says he's harder on himself than anybody else is. But the most important factor coming out of all of that is he's got to shake it off before North Carolina goes and plays NC State next week, because they don't have a bad secondary either. So,
yep. Jason, get in here on Drake before we take a break, because I do want to talk about the defense on the other side of the break. Drake struggled. Why did he struggle against the Clemson defense beyond what we've already talked about with Nate Wiggins?
Yeah, I mean, this was a game where he needed to be at his absolute best. I mean, we talked about it in the pregame. Clemson might have the best back seven in college football. They're going to force you to be outstanding. You're going to have to locate the football. You're going to have to hit NFL windows. You're going to have to get the ball out on time and earlier than usual. And there's just not going to be a whole lot of space. And by the way, I keep seeing people like Wiggins was holding, Tez Walker sometime. Tez Walker also pushed off on multiple occasions that were not called. This football, folks. Yep. There was not one no call on Wiggins that I thought was worthy of significant pass interference stuff. You had the one, even RG3 was kind of, I think that was interference. I don't think it was. He was there a little bit, maybe a little bit early, but where the ball's positioned and all that, that's a play on. Yeah, if you're going to call that, then you better call the one on Marcus Allen down the field on the double move against Adam Randall for Clemson. He got there. It was almost exactly the same play, and they'd let them both do it. That's football, folks. But the thing is, this was a game where Tez was not going to be able to run wild against Wiggins. He got some wins, Tez made himself some money in this game too, because anybody that's beaten Wiggins and running by him the way that Tez did, we saw how fast Wiggins was when he ran Hampton down, and Tez ran by him a couple times. Okay. And Drake dropped the ball in a bucket a couple times. He made some big-time throws in this game. The throw to J.J. Jones was a great throw, and there were a few others. But overall, I didn't think Drake was especially sharp in this game in terms of the consistency that he's played with at different points. You know, he dirted a few balls that he'd love to have back, and he missed one read that should have been an interception, threw it straight to Jeremiah Trotter, just missed the underneath coverage. And there are a few of those where there were hiccups in this game where, you know, if I'm an NFL team and I'm looking for reasons not to draft Drake Maye number one, first of all, the first game I'm pulling off the film of the last 2 years for Drake Maye in terms of assessing him and scouting him is the Clemson game, because I know that that's the closest to an NFL defense he's going to have played. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, big time throw. What was he seeing there? Big time throw. Okay, he's got to get that out a little early. Big time throw, and then dirted a ball, and then another miss. And then another miss, and there were a few points where I've wondered the last couple weeks whether he's fully healthy in terms of his arm and upper body, and maybe he's not. But there are a few misses that were a little uncharacteristic, where he got maybe a little pressure, and RG3 in a couple of cases. Oh well, the pressure affected him there, and I'm thinking, he had enough space to have a full motion there and just missed it. And there were probably 5 of those. And I think Drake would say, like, he didn't throw it as well. He was not as sharp in this game as he would have liked to have been. So, you know, I think it was up and down. This was kind of a boom and bust performance for him in a game where he needed to be, you know, this was a game where Drake Maye needed to be turned up to 11 in terms of quality, and I think he was more like a 7.5, you know, maybe a 7. And, you know, that's not at his level. That's not at the level that he's used to playing.
Let me take a second to talk about, and folks in the chat, a couple things. One, explaining that the other team has good players too is not blowing anybody, as somebody said in the chat. I'll probably get in trouble for saying that. But you guys, folks want to rip on certain aspects of the game, realize that there's other good players out there. And we've tried to do that fairly without just saying somebody stinks. But this gets my blood boiling a little bit. I'm sorry. And also, Jason explained the Nate Wiggins play early in the chat, or early in the discussion. So when we're done, rewind it and listen. The full fleshing out of why Nate Wiggins' play was not illegal touching. I want to take a second to talk about Johnny T-Shirt. Shout out to the 403 people in the chat. Guys, you are amazing. And Johnny T-Shirt is there for you when they want you, when you need your Carolina gear, whether it's basketball, football, field hockey. Look, the field hockey team's playing for a national championship at 1:30 in Chapel Hill. The women's soccer team is playing at 2 o'clock in the NCAA tournament. They've got all the gear for all those type sports, and you can take care of them by going there and shopping local, shopping alumni-owned and operated, but also if you're a premium subscriber. And if you're a premium subscriber, please check out Jason's film breakdowns. But also, if you're not a premium subscriber, get on the train and watch those videos. A lot of people are talking about what happens after the season. A lot of people are talking about coaching changes and all that. Inside Carolina is where it'll be if anything like that comes up. Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Take a national break, or take a break for the national guys. It's the day after Carolina loses to Clemson. All right, Buck. Let's talk about the defense. I've previewed your column. I previewed your column that'll come out shortly after this. Your take on the defensive plays. Jason said 34 points wins Carolina the game. He would have been right. But go Buck.
Well, there's good and bad you could say about it, but as I preview in the column, my line in it was if you as a UNC fan are intent on you're on that UNC defense sucks, fire Gene Chizik train, you're not going to tie me to the tracks and run over me with it, because I feel like there should be changes in the offseason too. But the defense did not play as poorly in this game as they did at many, many points in the season to this point. They got 6 3-and-outs. Now that's not, participation trophy worthy. That just because they had 6 3-and-outs, they played great football. And there were some other things they were unable to do in terms of stopping Clemson at critical points. There were missed tackles. There were bad angles taken. Some of the stuff that we see virtually every game that Carolina plays. But in this particular game, they did not play horrible. This was not a horrible defense. It wasn't a great defense, but that they held Clemson to trying to see. Do you have that off the top of your head, Jason? Yards per
Clemson's
play.
totals?
Yeah, yards per play. 5 and change, something like that.
Yeah, 5.2. Sorry, I was muted. 5.2.
Yeah. So the defense did not play badly, and they came up with some turnovers. Should have had one more turnover. So I'm not going to hang this loss on North Carolina's defense. There are plenty of losses that they have had. I'm going to give them to the defense, but not this one. I think they did enough that if North Carolina had, like Jason was saying, had they had it turned up to 9 or 10 on offense, they'd have won this game going away. And now some of that was taken out of their hands by some of the calls that were made. We're not going to blame the refs for costing UNC this game. But at the same time, I think the defense did enough to win the game. And had North Carolina scored 34 points, they would assuredly have done enough to win the game. That's not even in question. So if you want to bang on the defense, I'll stand off to the side and let you have at it. But this North Carolina defense was not the cause of this loss.
And
Jason, looking at the
I want to
snap
jump in
counts.
real quick. I'm seeing in the chat, I'm seeing people say, they gave up 450 yards and, they're 90th in the country in terms of this or that. Y'all stop using yards per game metrics. Stop. Those were out of date when VHS tapes were still being used. So don't do it. Use per play measures. 5.2 yards per play against Clemson is a good outing for the defense. You're going to give up plays against a good team. That's fine. And they're 56th, by the way, in the country in yards per play allowed. So, if we're talking about that, that's a different thing. I've been on record. I am not happy with how the defense has played this season. But let's use correct metrics if we're going to do it, and let's not point to 450 yards. 450 yards on 80-plus plays is not bad. You have to adjust. Now, if you give up 450 yards on 50 plays, that's a whole different ballgame. But the defense played well enough for Carolina to win this game.
Yep. Couple key things, Jason, I wanted to ask you about. We talked about snap counts last week a lot. I saw Amari Campbell out there early in this game, and I said, oh, okay, they're going to get some guys rest, and it's not going to be a worn down thing. And I think that came into play on a play that I'm going to mention to you. But Kamen Rucker, 91 snaps, Evans, 72, Gray and Eccles, 92 and 90. Amari Campbell, after that early sighting, had 3 snaps. Marcus Allen, 90 on the corner, which Stick Lane got 70, which I like, but I think he missed a couple tackles late. But, Jason, I thought a key play in this game for the defense, Carolina, and if I'm wrong on this, correct me, Carolina cut it to 21-14, and then Shipley had that long run, if my memory serves. And you had a missed tackle by 2 of your best defensive players. What did you think, Jason, as the game wore on with North Carolina's defense, especially late? Now, the fourth quarter, they didn't give up a boatload of points and yards like they had in the past. But how did you think as the game went on, North Carolina's defense was holding up?
Well, let's just take a look at the numbers in terms of first, second, third, and fourth quarters. So in the first quarter, Carolina gave up 4.7 yards per play. In the second quarter, they gave up 4.3, which is very good against a good Power 5 team. In the third quarter, they gave up 7.9 yards per play. And then in the fourth quarter, back to 4.6, largely because Clemson sat on the football once they went up, because it was 28-14 going into the fourth quarter, and Clemson kind of packed up at that point and just wanted to make sure that they didn't do anything stupid. So at that point, they were running the football. Clemson ran the football 16 times in the fourth quarter, and several of those were, they had 2 drives essentially that were almost kneel down drives because of the fourth down that Carolina went for, which I think was, by the way, the right decision to go for 4th and long from your own 20 there, because you had to have 2 possessions. But Clemson basically sat on it there and then on the next drive as well. So essentially you do see second half, Clemson jumps to almost 8 yards a play in the third quarter, and that's when they scored 14 points. And they averaged 8.5 yards a rush. Had a couple of those big plays that you mentioned. And yeah, I think you still see Carolina's defense just leaking energy as the game goes on. And I noticed Campbell, he jumped off the screen on that play. I mean, he made a good play as a linebacker, was in position, did everything you asked him to do, and then didn't get any more run the rest of the game. And I was disappointed by that. And I've been disappointed by the rotation all year. Though I do understand, there are times where if you don't feel like your guy's ready, fully ready to play, then the comfort as a coach is to keep the guy that you trust more in. But by this stage of the year, this is where, my belief is that your coaching staff needs to have a plan early in the year to make sure that by the end of the year, a guy like Amari Campbell is ready for 20 plays, a game, in a game where your defense is playing 90-plus plays. And they're not there.
Something that folks should do, we had Shaquille Rashad on Inside Carolina Live yesterday, and you can go find it on YouTube. Sort of asked Shaquille about playing young guys and about playing the backups and all that. It's some interesting discussion in that show. You don't usually go back and listen to a pregame show after a game, but Shaquille offered a lot of good stuff there. Buck, positives. I think I will say this. I think when Elijah Huzzy went out, which from my untrained non-medical eye looked like potentially a high ankle sprain, that really, really not only hurt the defense, even though I thought DJ Jones played well in his replacement, but it really hurt on punts and soaking up that hidden yardage. But Buck, give me some positives on the defense. I think there were some out there. I think the safeties, other than Stick Lane, still don't come down and hit. But I thought Marcus Allen played pretty well, and I thought Stick played pretty well. Your take there, Buck, on the defense, on the good side, because I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about some of the standouts and positive stuff, given your take on the defense playing well enough to win this one.
People are going to rebel when I say this, but I didn't think Don Chapman had a bad game. He was making some hits out there. And I didn't think that the play of the defensive line was as good as it should be. Certainly, they didn't get any sacks. So, and that's probably also has something to do with Clemson's offensive line. But I don't want to get into, I don't want to lapse into in front of this fired up comment crowd that we have today to get into any toxic positivity. Um, you know,
That's a hell of a word.
I'm not gonna get, I'm not gonna get accused of that, and get in here and say, well, everything happens for a reason and other platitudes like that. The defense, and for those people that push back against some of the assessments that we've had here about the defense, nobody here is saying that this is a great defense. If you've got it on your bingo card, this is not the 85 Bears. So take it easy when we're saying things about the defense. This is not, I've seen some really bad defenses in my time watching Carolina football. Tommy has as well. And, Jason's seen plenty of bad North Carolina defenses. But that's not what we saw yesterday. I have seen North Carolina's defense get brutalized, just plain stoned, many times. That was not yesterday. Now, did they play perfectly? No, they did not. They didn't play well enough to allow the offense to play the way they did. Let's put it that way. Had the offense gotten 34 points on the board, we'd be talking about an upset win yesterday in Death Valley. So, that's where I come out about the defense, not going down the toxic positivity road, but let's not also lynch people that have committed a misdemeanor. So that's where I come out there.
Jason, give me some positives and sort of where do we go, or where does this team go from here? I watched a little bit of that NC State Virginia Tech game. It looks, it's a similar setup to what you see going on with Clemson. State's finding some footing ahead of a big game next weekend. Just your overall thoughts on the defensive play there, good and or bad, and what's next.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I was actually pleased about is that you saw a level of physicality from the defense in this game that was, I thought, improved over the last 3-4 weeks in particular. I saw let's just think about the short yardage situations. How many times so far this season has Carolina's defense been in a short yardage situation against whoever, and you just watch them give up the 2-3 yards just pretty easily? Clemson had to work in short yardage, and they didn't get them every time. And I know that's kind of a low bar in the sense of like, wow, there was a 3rd and 1, and Clemson didn't run for 4 yards. They got tackled for a loss there. Wow, Cade Klubnik, has got the little push play, the sneak thing that everybody's doing, and got stoned at the line of scrimmage. Like, wow, they actually did some stuff that you'd expect a competent defense with defensive linemen that are actually playing low and with some physicality. They did some of that in this game. There were some plays where they spilled the counter correctly and managed to string it out to the sideline, and you had a guy come up and make a play. I want to single out a couple of the defensive backs for coming up and not waiting at the line of scrimmage for somebody to do something, but coming downhill and actually making tackles in the backfield. This happened a few times, or not necessarily in the backfield, but a yard or two upfield and actually tackling with coming downhill a little bit. Some things that I've not been happy about the last few weeks that I thought were a little better in this game. And they're going to have to continue to be better against a state offense that's going to, true to form, they're going to come in and they're going to try to run the rock and run the rock some more. And once they've finished running it a little bit, they're going to try to run it some more And you're going to have to be physical and handle business at the point of attack against them the same way you did against Clemson. I don't think State has a Phil Maffa or Shipley on that roster. So, that's the good thing, is that if they handle their business up front at about the same level they did against Clemson, I don't think they'll give up 31 points to NC State. So that's the positive to bring out of this game from a defensive side, is that I did think there was some legitimate improvement in some of those areas.
Yeah, I agree there. I mean, I love the way Marcus Allen came up. I believe shot the gap on that screen and made a hit. We haven't seen that. A lot of positives, but some untimely missed tackles there that cost them on that Shipley run. Buck, let's wrap this one up. We're 50 minutes in. To paraphrase you, we've plucked all the turkey bones. We've plucked all the feathers off that turkey.
Should I say this the right way? We've plucked all the feathers off this turkey.
Yes, accurate.
That's on
and
your
relevant.
bingo card. You can cross that one off.
Yeah, really. North Carolina goes to NC State. What I want to see from this game is solid effort across the board, and the coaching staff completely and all in putting this team in position to beat NC State, whether it's clock management, whether it's play calling, whatever you want to say. I want to see a game played by North Carolina, Buck, that we're not talking about some crazy clock management issue that we have literally every game, some crazy decision. I want to see a game fully decided by the players on the field between the white lines. But close us out on this one.
Well, it's State Week starting tomorrow, or starting today, however you want to call it. And, this is a big game for North Carolina. Last year, the Tar Heels managed to run out their string on a bad note, closed out with 4 straight losses. And this year, they're on that same trend line, except they beat Duke. And if they beat State, that puts them at 9-3 for the season, which at the start of the season, 9-3 is where I thought they would end up. I didn't think they'd end up at 9-3 the way they have, but this would be a 9-3 team. That's what my mind said it was before the season started. So I think we carry that into the game, that if North Carolina manages to beat NC State, they'll finish 9-3. They'll go to a decent bowl game. They could finish with double-digit win season. If they do, it'll only be the second one since '97. I think that's correct.
Yep.
And even though a lot of UNC fans are going to say that small consolation for a season we thought was going to be much better, I love that when people say that. I love it when they say that. If you don't have expectations of the football team program that you follow, if you don't have expectations, then what are you in? Why are you even a fan for it all? And I think this team can get to 10-3, but before they can get there, they got to get to 9-3, and that means beating State next week. So that's where I am with that.
It's going to be crazy. Before Jason gives his final thoughts, let me give a shout-out to Congruity. They're, of course, sponsors of this podcast as well. Johnny T-shirt's a big deal because it's local. Well, Congruity is a national company, but they're also North Carolina-based, and they take care of your small and mid-sized business by empowering you with their expert HR and payroll outsourcing. We talk a lot about the people. Well, the people are the most important part about anything, and they take care of those people with the top-line technology, the great customer service. They transform your organization into that small and mid-sized business into something bigger than that. If you're on this message board or on this chat, do me a favor, go to congruityhr.com/Tar Heels, fill out that form, get connected to a consultant, and let those guys give you a plan that you can either take or not. It's free if you're an Inside Carolina person. It's free to get their assessment of what they can do for your company. It's worth it. Drake Maye always says, you never go broke making a profit. Congruity gives you a free opportunity to do just that. congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. Fill it out. Check them out. Jason Staples. Final thoughts. State week, as Buck says. And I agree. I love the feisty chat. Buck posted that in the chat. I love it. It makes it fun. It makes it. We've done many of these shows when there's a ton of apathy, when nobody gives a rip. Shout out to UNC Carter on the message board. Goes to Waffle House, comes home, throws it up on the big screen to listen. People care. 100% people care. That's why people get mad. The old saying, if I quit yelling at you, is because I don't think you have anything left to offer. Here we are with North Carolina football. Jason Staples, close us out.
Yeah, so Tommy, what did you have as Carolina's final record in the regular season coming into the year?
10-2.
Buck,
Losing
what'd
to
you have?
Clemson in Pitt. Buck had 9-3.
Buck, you had 9-3. And
I did.
I think I had 9-3 too. So
You did, especially on the probability share when you
Yeah,
shook out like
yeah.
8.5, 3.5, something like that. Because you were doing probabilities this year.
Yeah. So Carolina wins this game, and honestly, they're right on realistic expectations for the season. You want to get to the place where, as a program, expectations are better than 9-3. But you know how many programs realistically can expect better than 9-3 in a given year? That's not a big number, right? Carolina is actually getting there. Now you can say, well, could have been with a elite quarterback. You should expect more. Sure, okay, and that's why I understand why people are salty, and I think there's some justification for that. But 9-3 is a good season, and if you're on this, if you're part of the Carolina program and you have any trouble getting motivated for NC State. I've said it before, like, this might not be the sport for you. This might not be the pursuit for you. This is an opportunity to knock off, to cross off one more, going into the season goal, to cross off another rival. And in terms of program building, this is a really important game. You got to win this game. This is a second season with Drake Maye at quarterback. And, NC State's maybe a little down from the last couple years, from, 2 or 3 years ago from where they were. You got to win these games. And, in terms of continuing to build as a program for the optics of it. In fact, Tommy, I'm curious, would you call this a must-win game?
I 1,000,000% say Saturday in Raleigh is a must-win. Bingo.
I think we're wearing that. I think we're wearing that out a little bit with Tommy, but yeah, it's a must-win.
So, it's a rivalry game. It's a game that I think Carolina should win and should be favored in this game. And you get there, you get to 9-3, and you've had a successful season. And then bowl season will be interesting because there are a number of players with real NFL prospects on this team. And who they get matched up against is going to matter and all that. But this is absolutely a team that can get to 10 wins. So, 10-win seasons are a good barometer of a healthy program. So, yeah, I think I'll just wrap with that. I think there's been some points of frustration. I've been very frustrated with some stuff that I've seen. But there's also been some growth. So yeah, well, you want to see one more week where you see some of that growth and move into the postseason.
Yeah. Somebody asked me earlier, will we do a post-mortem on the season? We'll do that when the season's over with this crowd. A lot to talk about there. Who knows what will happen, but I do know what happens this week is North Carolina plays NC State at 8 o'clock in Carter Finley Stadium. If you've never been, it is a hornet's nest, and we'll be there. But one thing else is Inside Carolina will be here all week. Got a ton of coverage. Vip and Shot coming up. Justin Jackson and John Bowman will do their basketball show after North Carolina's game on Thursday on Thanksgiving. They'll do that live, coast to coast, noon dish, all you can ask for at Inside Carolina. And if you're watching this and you're mad about football and all that, and we get it, and we understand it, and it's a good thing, on Thursday, spend some time with your family and kiss all the babies and hug all the mamas and the daddies and the brothers and sisters and all the relatives. Take time out for that. Carolina football will be ready to go on Saturday. Join us over near in the Bojangles lot at Carter Finley if you'd like to. But shout out to Buck Sanders, Jason Staples on the road. I'm Tommy Ashley, and shout out to the people that are always here in the chat. Ton of regulars, ton of new people. We love them all. Shout out to Congruity and Johnny T-Shirt for being our sponsors. Everybody be safe and have a good week.